Today kicks off a brand new series on Locked On Cardinals. I'll be breaking down every single game for the Arizona Cardinals 2024 schedule. Let's start it off today, baby.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Here, follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner _. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. As always, thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Been in sports radio in Phoenix since 2011. Been hosting this lovely podcast since 2017. Thank you for being a part of this chapter of it. It's only going to get better from here, baby. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So, as I mentioned in the cold open, as we call it here in the biz, I'll be breaking down every single game for the Cardinals schedule for the next 6 shows. And it's not going to be tooth and nail about the other team. It's going to be more about what the Cardinals need to bring to the table with their new roster, Kyler Murray healthy, Jonathan Gannon in year 2, and kind of look at what the other teams are going through and, their offseason moves, what they did through the draft, and kind of the arc for their team as well. And you start the first 3 weeks with Buffalo on the road at Orchard Park, the Rams at home, and Detroit at home. It's going to get real very quickly for the Arizona Cardinals. The honeymoon phase, while, there's no such thing as voluntary anymore and all those things, that's great. And everything is set up for success. And I guess you could say, they're hitting the ground running in the fast lane right away. It's not like they're playing Carolina in week 1, a team that's on the outs in week 1. They're playing against 3 pretty much perennial playoff teams at this point. And they're going to have to hit the ground running. Starting with Buffalo. What Buffalo feels like for me is the 2021 week 1 matchup against Tennessee. On the road, questions surrounding both teams. Tennessee was, on the rise. The Cardinals were coming off, started pretty well. Started, I think, 5-3 or 6-3. Had the Hail Murray, and then they kind of faltered towards the end of the season. So it's like, all right, well, Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury, let's see what you guys got 2021, and they blow Tennessee out of the water. The one thing the Cardinals have going for them, among having a much more talented roster they did last year, is it's week 1. Week 1 is the biggest crapshoot of any week in the NFL season. And it's something that the Cardinals don't have the pressure on them that the Bills do. And I host one of my favorite things to do. I host Locked On NFL Thursday with Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans. We've been doing it. I think this is going on our 4th season. And he and I have discussed the Bills. It's not turmoil, but it's like, well, listen, they're no longer the darlings. There are now expectations, and they're not meeting them. It's not their fault that Patrick Mahomes may be the best quarterback we've ever seen, and they're also not doing themselves any favors. And I do think with the Bills specifically, not winning the game against Kansas City in the playoffs where they allowed Kansas City to go down the field and kick a tying field goal with 13 seconds, that was something that is not able to be come back from. And sure, Josh Allen has been an MVP for the last handful of years. And it's like the Bills are just an unlucky organization. So when the Cardinals go there to Orchard Park in week 1, it'll be without Stephon Diggs for the Bills. They traded back from the middle first-round pick that they had with Kansas City. Kansas City ended up drafting Xavier Worthy there, and then they traded back again. They drafted Keon Coleman with the 33rd pick, I believe. So he's going to be their wide receiver 1 of the future. They brought in Mac Hollins. They brought in Curtis Samuel. They bolstered both their defensive and offensive line because that was the obvious plan this year, was to add wide receiver talent, move off from Stephon Diggs, get a draft pick, and then bolster both lines. Because the defensive line and offensive line, if they're strong, it'll allow you to overcome weaknesses in other positions, especially on the defensive side of the ball, if you can put pressure on the quarterback. So what the Cardinals need to do in an effort to get a win on the road in week 1 with a brand new construct of roster, with Kyler Murray healthy, James Conner, Trey Benson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson coming into year 2, Trey McBride going into year 3, where he's set to be, a top 5 tight end if the trajectory remains the same. The defense is young. They're hungry. They're going to hit hard, but they're inexperienced. You go up against the Bills with a ragtag group of wide receivers. They've got, Dalton Kincaid is a pass catcher who's got the same, trajectory that Trey McBride does. But Josh Allen is the best player on the field. So that's the great equalizer. So what the Cardinals need to do in Orchard Park in week 1 is keep Josh Allen in front of you. Josh Allen's ability to just make something out of nothing is something that maybe 5 quarterbacks can do. And the thing with him is he's a linebacker. He's a large man. He's got very Cam Newton, like Cam Newton and Josh Allen. Josh Allen doesn't do it as smoothly as Cam Newton did, but they're absolute terrors inside the red zone, on 3rd and shorts, on 2nd and mediums against man coverage, where it's just like, oh, you're going to give me 5 yards. He's going to take it. He's going to run over a corner, and he's going to keep going. Josh Allen is nightmare fuel for opposing defenses. And it's going to be a fantastic test for the corners, the young ones specifically, and, B.J. Ojulari and Darius Robinson right out the gate. Because even though the Cardinals have this extremely difficult start to the season, it is a fantastic way to be introduced to the NFL, especially for the defensive guys, with Max Melton, Elijah Jones, and Mac Wilson, who just came over from New England, Kyzir White coming into his second year with the team. Like, this is their time to be like, all right, this is what top tier NFL talent looks like. This is what we're going to be facing for the next decade. Giddy up. Why not start week 1 on the road in a hostile environment? Now, offensively for the Cardinals, I don't see it being much different than last year. Like, that's the beauty of having a system. You plug talented players into the system. You run the system. You trust the system. You run the ball with James Conner. You throw the ball to Trey McBride and Michael Wilson, and hopefully unleash the beginning of a beautiful relationship between Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. The thing that I'm going to be watching the most week 1, especially the early chunk of the 2024 season, is how much they utilize Kyler Murray running the ball. A world is perfect where he doesn't have to run the ball. A world is perfect where you have the running back run the ball, you throw the ball to your wide receivers and tight ends, and Kyler Murray plays quarterback. Now, that's not to say when passes break down and when plays break down and things like that. Obviously, Kyler Murray, one of his best skill sets is his ability to keep defenses honest with his legs. I get it. But imagine an offense where you can put up high 20s in points and Kyler Murray running the ball is like the 6th option. Not only for an extension of his career, but that means that he is throwing the ball at an elite level like we've seen him do. This isn't a top-tier defense that it was a year or two ago. They've lost pieces. They brought Taylor Rapp back, okay? He's like, I'm either going to retire or I'm going to re-sign with the Bills. And he re-signed with the Bills. So they got some of their pieces. Ed Oliver's still there, they added some talent on the defensive line. But when you look at this Bills team is a ticking time bomb. You just don't know when it's going to go off. So if the Cardinals can go in week 1, it would be surprising, I think, if they got a win. I think it's like the point of these series of shows aren't to say, oh, the Cardinals will, because of that, the Cardinals will win this game. I'm going to do my predictions way, way, way closer to the season. But if the Cardinals go in to Orchard Park and beat Buffalo in week 1 of the 2024 season, it is going to put the rest of the NFL on notice that the Arizona Cardinals are coming. And that would be something that be a bit surprising if they get a dub. But if they do, we're talking complete. And it's not just like, oh, it's one game. And you said yourself, it's week 1. So, it could, anything could happen. It would hit different. And we're 9 weeks away from seeing it. Hold on to your hats. It's going to get wild soon. Now, irrespective, win or lose in week 1, the Cardinals come home. They play a couple home games in a row, handful of home games in a row. Next, division rival, the new look Los Angeles Rams. Are the Cardinals in a position to overtake the Rams talent-wise and in the NFC West starting this year? I'll discuss it next. We roll on here, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer it gets to the first pitch. Like I always say, I wish baseball was my favorite sport because it's like March Madness for 6 months. You get to watch your favorite team play 162 times, not counting the playoffs. And the Game Time app is your one-stop shop for all of it, man. So say you want to go to Chase Field. Okay, you want to go to Diamondbacks game. Say it's a matinee on Saturday or a night game on Thursday night. And listen, I've never sat in this area of the stadium. I wonder what it would look like. I wish I knew the vantage point before I bought the tickets. Well, the Game Time app, they give you that liberty. You can search, the section of row you want to sit in. You click on the link, you click on the picture, and it shows you what the vantage point is. It shows you exactly what you're going to be seeing from your seats before you buy them, which is an absolute game changer. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. Guaranteed. I wanted to do this series for a while, break down the entire season for the Cardinals. And, we're getting camp in a couple weeks. Things are going to be ramping up with new content. And, this is the quote-unquote slow time of the year, but, slow time in the NFL, man. I had Matt Deary from Locked On Lions on last Friday, okay? And I think it's my most viewed show. So go check it out. It's interesting because even though we know the parallels between the Cardinals and the Lions, just construct, shift from, just a bad, dysfunctional organization to, just the beginning, the rumblings, the new beginning into functionality. While the Lions are a couple years ahead, as Matt and I were talking, it's like, oh my God, there's another comparison. Oh, there's another parallel. And it's eerie. And check it out. It's first, thanks for everybody who was watching it. Check it out. It's fun to see into the future of what the Lions are experiencing now, where they started, where the Cardinals did at the end of the 2022 season, obviously the beginning of 2023, when they fired the last regime and hired the new. So it's just fascinating. So the Rams, okay. Aaron Donald retired. Funny comment from Kyler Murray on Twitter saying, thank God. Cooper Kupp a year older. And you're starting to see a changing of the guard there with Matthew Stafford, who is an ageless wonder. Hopefully, it's fun. It's so fun to watch Matthew Stafford play quarterback. It just is. Sucks for the Cardinals that he's in that division, but I feel like at this point, the gap of talent and the gap of coaching and the gap of overall, as I mentioned, functionality between the organizations is getting closer and closer. The gap is shrinking. And we're going to see, and the Cardinals have had spot games where they've just absolutely punished the Rams earlier in seasons. They beat, they ran a rough shot. I think it was in 2021 in LA. The Cardinals got a convincing dub. The Rams coming to town. This is another test, especially for the defense. While the offense is going to have an easier time than it's had in the last 8 years or 10 years, however long Aaron Donald played, the defense is going to be the kind of litmus test for this team and how much you'll need to weigh your, trust and necessity to stay in games on the offense. If the Cardinals are giving up a 30-burger every week, it's going to be difficult for the offense to keep up. So when you have two star veteran quarterbacks that the Cardinals faced during the first couple weeks, and you look at the third with Jared Goff, and I'll talk about in the next segment, it's a perfect time. Why not? You don't need to get your sea legs. Let's roll. And this is going to weigh heavily on Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. It's going to weigh heavily on Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson, Kyzir White, who is, poised to be that leader that you wanted Isaiah Simmons and that you wanted Zaven Collins to be in the middle of the defense. he seems to be just that guy. It seems effortless for him. We're going to find out very quickly. So, what the Cardinals need to do on defense to be able to stay in that game against the Rams with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp Part 2. Blake Corum is now going to be tagged with Kyron Williams in the backfield. It's going to be like, I've done a couple shows this offseason about who has the most pressure on them, who needs to be relied upon the most. And while everybody needs to do their job, obviously, it's going to be interesting to see if Darius Robinson can really just hit that ground and go and be able to get in the backfield from week 1. Because if he can, this defense is going to look completely different. If the Cardinals can get some sort of semblance of a pass rush, whether it be from B.J. Ojulari to take that 0-1 jump from year 1 to year 2, or Zaven Collins to surprise some people and actually have an impact right away in 2024, or if it's going to be easier for Darius Robinson to perform, not only because he's played inside and outside the defensive line at Missouri, but because Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones will be there. So we'll have that veteran help while not top tier and more rotational than anything. The floor is just raised for the defensive line this year. Plus, with the corners of Max Melton and Elijah Jones, we'll see who's starting. I mean, it's going to be a lot of guys fighting for one position. You expect Sean Murphy-Bunting to start. You expect Garrett Williams to start. But we will see very quickly. First off, if the pass rush can get there. If the pass rush can get there, it'll make jobs easier, obviously, for the secondary. If the pass rush can't, with the offensive line that's much improved by, of the Rams, we will need to see what this young cornerback group is made of. Because I could see two things happening in both week 1 and week 2. Josh Allen throwing 2 interceptions, fumbling once, and the Cardinals winning, or Josh Allen throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Same thing in week 2. Both of these guys will turn the ball over. They're both, I always say it cliche, and like a hipster would, gunslingers. They're both, they huck it. A lot of times without regard for, they throw it into the zone of their wide receiver, where the wide receiver is going to be. Sometimes it gets picked off. So you could see both in week 1 and week 2. And if the former happens in either week 1 or week 2, that means not only is the pass rush getting home, not necessarily needing those sack numbers, but pressures, blowing up the pocket, making it difficult for Matthew Stafford just to have, as I call them, just tea parties in the backfield. The Cardinals can turn them over. And if they do, they'll win. So this is why the 2024 season, specifically for the Cardinals, is so wild and weird and full of question marks. We don't know if the NFL is going to NFL again. It's like, how the hell do you see that? How the hell do the Cardinals start 3-0? Happens every year. This is what a changing of the guard looks like. And while the Bills are in the AFC and Josh Allen's an MVP candidate, I'm not comparing Josh Allen and Kyler Murray by any stretch. This isn't about players. It's about teams. The Cardinals have the opportunity to play both of these teams tough in the weeks 1 and week 2. It's a one-possession game. We've seen the Cardinals with this team, with Josh Dobbs at quarterback, get wins because they have the right head coach, you got the right OC, and the right DC. Stay close, let the players go win the games at the end. And we've seen it with this roster. Now, imagine that with the infusion of talent the Cardinals have brought in, whether it would be through the draft or free agency. 2 very tough tests to start the season. And it doesn't get any easier in week 3. Jared Goff looking into the future of what the Arizona Cardinals hopefully will be like in a couple of years. Detroit Lions come to town week 3. I'll discuss that next. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Selfishly, I'm doing this for me too, because this gets me jacked up about the season. Cardinals, football, 9 Sundays away. It's going to be fantastic. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on. If you want to go leave a review where you listen to podcasts, that's cool. I'm just happy that you're here every day. Thanks for being around, whether it be since 2017 or if this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals. Thank you. I'm over the moon with, how much feedback and comments been getting. I truly want this to just be one big family. And I know that you have busy lives, and I know that, there's a lot of things that pack your day, but I appreciate you taking 25 to 30 minutes to hear me say things out of my big dumb face. Just happy you're here. So thank you for that. And I do my best to bring you as good a content as I can to make your lives a little bit better. So week 3, Detroit Lions. Cardinals haven't fared so well against Detroit at home. It's been an Achilles heel over the last handful of years. And it's funny, it's a spot near to my heart because it was Kyler Murray's first opponent. And this isn't like, oh, he loves Kyler Murray. No, it's like I started going to games. I started getting media credentialed in 2018, which was not great. Sam Bradford, Washington, Alex Smith, Adrian Peterson on Washington. That was my first game. And things have got a lot better since then. But 2019, week 1, Kyler Murray's first game. The Cardinals look awful. There was a collective, oh no, Cliff. What has Steve Keim done in week 1? And then Kyler Murray puts everybody on his back and comes back. They tie the game. Kyler Murray has an incredible second half. And for those that don't remember, the Cardinals were a Tremaine Brock ball thrown off of his chest plate by Matthew Stafford in Lions territory that could have got the Cardinals a field goal to win the game. It would have been an incredible stamp for Kyler Murray's week 1 of his rookie season. So hasn't fared as well since, but this is a great test. This is going to be the toughest test in the first 3 weeks, in my opinion. New contract for Jared Goff, new contract for Amon-Ra St. Brown, new contract for Penny Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson going into his, they drafted 2 corners, Terry Armstead and Terrion Arnold and Enos Rakestraw in the first 2 rounds. So they bolstered their cornerback room with some of the top talent in this year's draft. And the Lions are a locomotive going downhill. Everything is just working there. They've got the right talent in the right spots. They've got 2 great running backs to complement each other in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. This is going to be if the Cardinals lose by 20, they're not there yet. I think the Cardinals definitely have a better chance of winning week 1 and week 2 than they do in week 3. Having said that, what the Lions have done is compound interested what they did the last 2 years. So seeing where the Lions are now, from being a laughingstock for 50 years, just like the Cardinals, to where they are now. I asked Matt Deary from Locked On Lions on the last show, is there a world where you saw this ever being possible? He goes, no. How? And the Cardinals have had more. They made a Super Bowl. They were on the precipice of making another one. Larry Fitzgerald, all that stuff. I get all of it. And the Lions, where they are now, I'd much rather have that trajectory, regardless if they make another Super Bowl or not, than making one random one with, Kurt Warner, who's great, and Fitz. It was a great run, but they had no business making the Super Bowl that year. They weren't the best team in football. You'd rather have the talent and the trajectory to be discussed as one of the 2 or 3 best teams in football. And that's where the Lions are now. It took 3 years to get them there. So going into week 3, this is the biggest test for the Cardinals out of the first 3 games. This is the true, where are they? Especially on defense. Because you've watched the Lions. If you haven't, they can put up a 40-burger any week. Amon-Ra St. Brown could go for 13 catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Sam Laporta. They've got players everywhere. So it's going to be a massive test for everybody on defense. It's just the corners, these first 3 weeks, it's unfair is not the right word because you want to know. You want to know. You got to work. You got to work. You got to massage the wrinkles out. You got to know who your guys are. And this year, the Cardinals, while having aspirations of making the playoffs, are probably still a year away. Having said that, if the Cardinals are in contention, if they play the way they played last year and are just a thorn in the side of every team they play, regardless of how much talent or lack thereof they did last year, if they do it with this roster, they're going to win more games than they lose. They've just got more talent. They also could still be a year away. And this isn't a built-in excuse. It's just, it takes longer to do it. So with Jared Goff coming in, with all of the guys around him on offense, this is going to be the test where it's like, okay, if the Cardinals give up 40 burger in week 3, wouldn't be surprised. And that's not to say they will. Going on the road for East Coast teams, even though it's in an afternoon slate, it's probably going to be on Fox with an actual good, announcing group instead of, the Mark Sanchez treatment the Cardinals got all year last year. This is the test. This is the one where they've got a couple weeks under their belt. They've worked some things out. And then it's like, okay, let's roll. This one, and one of these will be a theme. This will be that I'm about to say pretty much for this entire series of six shows I'm going to do. Kyler Murray is going to have to be the guy. Well, obviously, he's a quarterback. What are you talking about? He's going to have to win them games this year. So while there's the system, okay, you run the system. It's like the triangle offense. You run the system. Sometimes it's like, all right, Mike. All right, Kobe. Go do it. And that's something that great quarterbacks do. And Kyler Murray's done it. We've seen it. We've seen him make gold out of wheat or whatever. Spin, whatever that is. I don't know. We've seen him the Vegas game 2 years ago. Cardinals had no business winning that game. He has that. He's that guy. So if the Cardinals are down, 30 to 20 going into the fourth, and the defense can't stop anybody, Kyler Murray is going to have to compensate for the defense being a little bit behind the offense this year. He's going to have to be special. And I think that that's something that I'd probably give him more of a pass than I should, where it's like, okay, well, it was Cliff. Okay, well, he tore his ACL. Okay, well, last year he came back. This year, expectations for Kyler Murray are different than expectations for the team. While quarterback wins is not a true, it's an overblown stat. That's what, just like sacks for pass rushers, it's like, okay, great, you got 15 sacks. What do you do the rest of the year? You're rushing the quarterback 50 times a game. And you got, and that's what, times 18, 0-4, 900 times, you got 15 sacks. What about the rest? Kyler Murray is going to have to keep this team in games. He's going to have to be special. If the defense is what's set to be, a little bit behind the curve than the offense. He's going to have to go punch for punch with opposing top-tier quarterbacks. And while the offense will allow him to be in a system and situation that is the best that maybe he's ever had, he's going to have to take that and elevate it to where he is striking fear in opposing teams. And we haven't seen that really from any Arizona Cardinals player since, the mid part of the 2021 season. Sure, they won in Philly. Philly's defense was terrible. They're a broken team also. Kyler Murray is going to have to be special from here on out if the Cardinals want to win. And by special, I will leave this here because I don't want to leave the show with that. It's like, well, why didn't you talk about that more? And again, I'll discuss it more. Special doesn't need to be 400 yards and 5 total touchdowns a game. It doesn't. It could very well be 20 for 24, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 30 yards rushing. It doesn't have to be stat driven. It has to be when it's 3rd and 8 and the Cardinals are on the road and they need a first down to run out the clock, Kyler Murray converts it. When the Cardinals need a 3rd and 1 to convert on their own 30, down 2 or during a tie game to keep the drive alive, he needs to convert it. That's special. It doesn't have to be stat It's not stat driven. It's continuing to keep the Cardinals in contention to win games every week. It can look wildly different for different quarterbacks. But when you have a roster like this that's very young, with a system that is in place, Kyler Murray needs to be special. And I think that this is the year where everybody's going to be like, okay, he is. Weeks 4 through 6 tomorrow. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you then.